Good day, everyone. Welcome to episode 53 of the Madness Collective. I'm filling in for Crescent today. We send her love and blessings while she's gone. We have good old Antoine here, and we have Pepper filling in.
Hello.
Yes. And in this season of spring, which has bursting energy and sexual energy, we have a lot of sexy topics today, from porn stars, slut shaming, and is Lupita being fetishized? Very tough word to say, fetishized, but anyway. So let's just jump right into this, okay? So there is a Duke college freshman. Her name is Belle Knox, and it was discovered that she's a porn star, and that's how she's financing her way through college. And when people got wind of that, they started just humiliating her, sending her terrible emails and hate mail and just being terrible. So the question is it wrong to be a porn star and finance your way at Duke College, Duke University? What do you think? Is it wrong to be a porn star and finance your way? I guess the question is porn bad? Is that something negative? First of all, let's answer that. Is porn bad?
Well, I don't particularly like porn just because I think that it has a negative effect on how people view sex. And I'll say this being a woman, because I feel like there's an expectation that's put on you to perform in a certain way. That's just my opinion on porn. I don't really care that the girl is doing this. More power to her. And
Right.
I actually like listening to her. You know, she's empowered by it.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that she feels good about. And I can appreciate that about her. But for me, like what I view about porn, and whether it's my personal hang up about it or whatnot, but I do think it has a kind of this backlash, negative effect when you're with someone in the bed that is a porn watcher.
Well, you bring up a good point. You know, I guess porn can sometimes make sex a little bit more mechanical and lacking feeling and heart. I guess for me, my issue with porn sometimes is that some of the love, the simplicity of just loving someone is missing through porn. But other people say it's educational and it's inspiring, and I'm not mad at them for that. And her argument is it is empowering for a woman to take control of her sexuality and say, I don't care what the world thinks. I feel good about myself. What's your opinion on me? It doesn't matter. And I'm empowered. And also, it's a patriarchal society, a very male-dominated society that is scared of women being in power and being in control of their sexuality. If you read in history a lot of years ago, women would have these caves that they would let men come in, vestigial virgins is what they were called, and they would let men come in and they would have sex with all these different men, and whoever impregnated her won. Who knew? But women were in control of their sexuality, and it didn't matter. You weren't shamed for having a lot of partners. And she is throwing her sexuality in the face of America right now, and I think it's scary for a lot of people.
I think it's what you make of it, because I love porn. And it opened up a new universe to me, things I wouldn't have even known were possible. So I think it depends on what your mindset is when you're walking into that situation. And even with her, we can't forget that she's also doing this for a financial reason. She admitted that she wouldn't be doing porn if wasn't costing her $60,000 a year.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's her situation is a little bit different, because if you're going to be free and express your sexuality and it has nothing to do with money, I think that's actually different from her situation. But I think I don't think there's anything wrong with porn. I think you have to have a strong foundation, particularly as a female, in order to enter that industry, because it's a male-dominated industry. You know, you hear about Jenna Jameson and these other women that have taken control of their careers, but I feel like that's more rare than anything else. There's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of there's just a lot of women have really negative experiences within the porn industry. So she sounded like she had a good head on her shoulders. She knew exactly what she was getting into.
You bring up a good point. It's a lot of women are abused and they go into that industry, and so that's why it has a negative connotations. Like, ooh, is she abused? What's wrong with her? There's something negative. But some women actually enjoy it. I remember being in Amsterdam, and there were a group of women who loved their job of being on in the red light district and having sex with multiple men, and I would have conversations, and they enjoyed it. They worked 6 months, and then they would spend the other 6 months with their boyfriends and travel, and they loved their work. And there were another group of women that were ashamed completely of what they were doing. So I guess it just depends on which side you are on. But I guess America's conservative, if you think about it.
Well, it also depends on how you're raised, too,
Well,
because if you're raised to feel confident about your body and sexuality, and you're allowed to ask questions as a child, and you're not just, shoved away when you're exploring and learning about what physicality is, I think those are the people who are a lot more comfortable with their sexuality, and they're a lot less likely to be affected when people pass judgment on anything they do. So yeah, I think it's based on your foundation and your upbringing.
That is really true. I guess sometimes people in America get scared, like, oh, seeing this porn star, is my kid going to become a porn star? And that's why they get all scared about it. I think it's fear.
Yeah.
Well, or how they want their children to be taught. About sex. And so porn takes away everything, it's right there in your face. So some people are afraid of, losing control.
Ooh, losing control. And maybe if they taught the other aspects of sex, because porn is a whole different energy than what I view sex to be. Like, that's just not my viewing. And so when a guy has studied that and then he wants to have sex with me, there's going to be a problem. It's not going to
There's a disconnect.
There's a disconnect. But every once in a while, it could be fun to have somebody that wants all those theatrics. It can be exciting, but that is not my ideal of what intimacy is. And so maybe there needs to be more conversations of all the different layers and types of intimacy.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, let's move on. While we're talking about someone who has had a lot of, I guess, penises in her vagina, the next topic is called, have you ever been slut shamed? And that is, there was a young lady who was at the gynecologist, and while she was there, basically in a nutshell, the gynecologist was like, damn, how many people have you been with? Really? And she was like, whoa, no judgment here. And the gynecologist was pushing IUDs, intrauterine devices, different birth control on her. And so for me personally, I have never actually been slut shamed. I've had a doctor try to push birth control on me, and I'm not going to get into my feelings on birth control, but I'm not going to get into that. But no one has ever done that specifically. But I would be hurt if a doctor did that, right?
Well, I mean, you're incredibly in a vulnerable position as it is.
Yes.
Your feet are in stirrups. Nobody wants to hear about what you're doing or what you're not doing when you're concerned about your health.
Yes.
That's really not the time and place to do it, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
You stay in your lane. Like, this has nothing to do with that.
And who are you to judge me? You're judging me off of what are your ideas of how many sex partners should be normal.
Exactly.
I'm on the fence on this one. I think perhaps the doctor's approach was inappropriate, but studies show the more sexual partners that you have, and this woman who we're speaking of, she was at the doctor for an STI. This was not a standard checkup. She was there for an STI. So the doctor's already in that mode. So if you're there for an STI and they ask you how many partners you've had, and you say 80, the doctor at that point, I think, perhaps is justified in having some level of concern about
80 because of her age, or is
no? I just said 80. Number one, she didn't say 80. I just threw that number out.
But I'm saying is 80. I'm like, what is a lot? Like, how do we gauge this?
As a doctor,
what is a lot? I don't know.
If you look at the numbers when they interview people and the different studies, for a female, 80 would be a lot on average. But who's to say 80? 80 for you may be fine. I don't know. But I think doctors who work with numbers, if a woman comes in and a certain number comes up when they ask, because the thing is, your right as a patient is to say, I don't feel comfortable sharing that number with you and keeping it moving. If she felt bad about the doctor's response, I think perhaps she should have never given the doctor the number. Because that was her admitting she didn't care what the doctor thought about her number.
Well, you bring up a good point, because for me, when they ask some of the questions, I do find it very personal, and I do get a little bit uncomfortable when they ask.
That's their job, though.
Yeah. And so, but you want to be open and honest with them because maybe there is some exchange that needs to happen. So you want to be honest with your doctor.
Yes.
And so I understand why she told her the truth. But I don't know if she said the number was like 750 or something. And who knows?
And again, the number so much doesn't matter. It's how the doctor approaches the situation. Because when I was a teenager, I discovered a lump on one of my testicles.
Oh.
So I go to the doctor and I tell the doctor, and he was like, "Oh, it's fine. It's nothing." And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, like, I'm in the doctor's office. I think I have cancer.
You're
and my
dying.
nuts are gonna fall off.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to continue to. It was me. I had to just I had to keep letting the doctor know. No, I'm concerned about this. I don't feel comfortable with you just saying
it's nothing.
Yeah, to me, again, this falls in the same situation. Even though it wasn't shame, it was a doctor being insensitive. And that to me is the bigger issue.
That's great. I'm
That's
glad
a
you said
bigger
that.
issue.
That's exactly, even the reverse, because especially when I started going to the doctor, I hadn't had sex at all, and then as subsequently didn't have many partners. So it can be the reverse. Like, well, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that doesn't feel good either, because you're like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just not that active.
You're young and pretty.
Yeah.
You should be fucking.
I know. You're like, oh.
Which a good point. We're dealing with the consciousness of whatever the doctor is, and you don't, and you can't let yourself feel judged by the doctor because who knows what they're going through, and they're only human in themselves. And I have to say, just one gynecologist story. I remember being stressed out, and the doctor pulled my cervix open and held up a mirror and made me look and was like, look how pink, look how great, you're wonderful, don't worry. I've had wonderful experiences with gynecologists, thank goodness. So
that's good.
Get a good relationship with your doctor.
I think that would have freaked some women out, actually. You're very
cervix?
open-minded. Maybe they know your personality and they knew they could show you your cervix and talk about how pink it is. I guess that's a good doctor.
No, it is a good doctor because I was thinking about this the other day for some reason. A lot of women don't look.
You don't
and
look.
if you don't know what you look like, you're not gonna, at least for you, yours is external, you can see. Like, oh, I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But for us, it's like, what does that feel like? I don't know.
Yeah, we get
and
so
if someone
mental and
doesn't
our
tell
mind
you
just
to
starts
look,
going. Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, everything's fine.
Yeah, it was a great
have to
doctor.
look.
It was a great doctor. And just real quick, ban Bossy. Queen Bee headlines campaign to ban the word bossy and Twitter.
Stupid.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What is going on?
They're saying little girls are taught, particularly
to not be
when you're
bossy.
assertive, that's wrong because assertive is equated with bossy. And I'm gonna tell you something. I have a 9-year-old niece.
Yes.
And I've seen her interact with her friends, and some of them little fast girls are bossy, and they need to be told, stop being bossy, share, stop being so mean, have a fucking seat. So bossy to me means what it means.
I just don't understand who would put money and energy behind this whole campaign. Like, there's so many other things that we need to worry about. But I looked up who the lady who's headlining it, and she's like the COO at Facebook. Yeah. And she's probably someone who was always picked on and told she was bossy. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And I think she has a lot of money. She could pay these people to be on the team to
I think
campaign.
Conceptually, so, I guess the point clearly is women, speak your mind, be strong. Don't do that and be afraid of being labeled something.
Yes.
Right.
We understand that, but it's just, I think it's
was
a
such a
fail.
roundabout,
It's a weirdo
way.
It's
It was
weird.
Horrible.
Weird.
How is Beyonce on this campaign and she just had a song called Bow Down Bitches?
Exactly.
That makes no
If that's not
freaking
bossy,
sense.
I don't know what is.
It made no sense.
And then the song I'm Bossy, we love that, and it kind of took care of the whole, it dispelled the whole thing. Like, that was about empowerment, and now this is a fail.
That was kind of silly. Okay, that concludes segment 1. Thank you, everyone.
We are back, and we're gonna stick to basically one topic. We're trying something a little bit different. For those of you that have followed us from a long time ago, we used to do this every once and again. We pick a singular topic and just stick to that one. The one we're gonna touch upon today for this segment is whether or not Lupita Nyongo is being fetishized. And this all stems from a piece from Mark Lamont Hill from the Huffington Post. He had a guest on his show, a comedian named W. Kamau Bell. And here's some of the things that they said towards the end of the segment where he was interviewing him. Mark says to Bell, he says, they're talking about Lupita, and then Mark says, she seems like the next thing that white people like. And then he says, she's become like a fetish already. And then he asks the guest, does that worry you? And the guest, W. Kamau Bell, says, I'm less worried because she seems to know that. And basically, Mark was attacked on the internet because of what he said, because he said she was being fetishized, or he literally called her a fetish. And so he actually allowed some of his critics to come onto his show and express how they felt about some of the things that he said. Now, and just so you guys know, I looked up what fetish means, and Merriam-Webster's says it's an inanimate object worshipped for its supposed magical powers, or because it is considered to be inhabited by a spirit. It can also be an object of irrational reverence or obsessive devotion. The way I see the word, and this is my personal definition and what I think a lot of women were upset about, I see it in the way that he used it as an object of sexual fixation or obsession or objectification.
That's usually the connotation.
Yeah.
It is.
So what did you guys, first off, let me ask you, do you think she's being fetishized?
It's so many things to say. Number one, I have to say, when I first saw her pop up on the screen, for me, I always felt like my ideal of beauty was different than the average person, and it always threw me off. So to see her revered, and she's somebody that I really do find beautiful, the floodgates of emotion opened up for me, because I didn't think that would be possible. Now, when he said that she's a fetish, for me, I have been blown away about how much she's in the media and on every cover and in every magazine. I'm like, wow, she's the hot thing right now. Great. Would I have used the word fetish? No. But do I feel the need to jump on him like they did? The reason why I understood one of the reporters was the fact that she said by using the word fetish, it diminishes, I guess, the fact that she has won all these, she's worked so hard and got all these accolades on hard work. And when you say a fetish, it's just like it dismisses it on some kind, she's a fetish. But no, she's a talented person. So I understood the argument there, but I don't know if Mark Lamont, if he was really trying to be negative or hurtful against Black women or Black people. Are we just being sensitive again?
When I first saw that we were talking about this topic, at first I was like, oh my God, this is dumb. Why are we still talking about this? Not us, but why are we talking about this? And then I watched the interview and then I realized there's so many things to talk about within this topic and things that I had to look at myself and how do I feel about it. So I'm going to go back to why I think it's dumb. To me, I feel like everyone just was so affected by her.
Yes.
I feel like people are like, she's beautiful. And the Oscars is about clothes and makeup and what are you doing and how do you photograph? And I feel like she just is a beautiful woman that everyone was like just in awe of.
Yeah.
So I feel like, of course, they're going to put her on the cover. She's won and she's talented. And that's what any other actor or actress that wins gets the same attention.
Right.
So I was like, why are we talking about this?
Does it have to be a black-white thing? Like, could Miley Cyrus, could someone have used the word fetishize about her if she would have won something? Like, is it a black thing? Is that the way we're on?
It's both, though. And I'll tell you, I feel very differently from a lot of people on this topic because I think he used the right word. And what people are misunderstanding, he praises her for her accomplishments.
Yes.
He's questioning whether or not, because I think the question you have to ask yourself, like one of the guests on the show, her name was Gina McCauley. She's the one that went in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan of how she handled that. But
she was slightly abrasive, but she was great.
She was, but I think she misunderstood. She kept putting words in his mouth. He never said that she didn't deserve these accolades and this praise. He simply questioned the foundation and the basis for that praise and whether or not it is actually for her accomplishments or if it's because she's being fetishized. And I'll tell you something. The reason I believe she is being fetishized is because every time I see this woman doing whatever, and I know you mentioned with the Academy Awards, it's about fashion and stuff, but she's always being asked what she's wearing. What are you wearing? What are you gonna wear? And the thing is, particularly as a black person, I know more about this woman's fashion sense than I know about the fact that, she went to the Yale School of Drama. Right. These things that we should be focusing more on, we're not. We are I feel like there's some objectification going on there. I know more about this woman's clothes and what color she wears than her accomplishments.
I mean, but isn't that just America and our society, period? This is what we always do.
With her, though, I feel it's a little bit different because women that look like her, this type of praise is not normally granted and so easily.
So that's what it comes down to, and that's what the lady was kind of arguing. Is she just not what one would consider beautiful, and so now it's like, ooh, she's getting accolades. She wouldn't normally get accolades because.
Well, you have. The thing is, what I think gets lost is that for more than. I think that it's a question. It's not us saying that she 100% is being fetishized. I think it's okay to question when particularly what's interesting about this, and one of the other women on the panel, her name was Crystalline Karazin, and she talks about how Lupita makes some black people uncomfortable because historically in America, Lupita is not the type of beauty that black men have embraced as beautiful. So when white people come up and say, oh my gosh, she's fucking gorgeous, it's almost like, fuck, you're ashamed.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
And me growing up, I know a girl like Lupita would have had it rough in my neighborhood. I can tell you that. I can tell you.
Oh,
black people they can be very negative when it comes to us in our history and dealing with African people. I've heard some really crazy things come out of black people's mouths in reference to Africans.
It's true. So was Mark basically telling on himself on some kind of level and saying that she isn't what I would consider beautiful, so she's a fetish? That's what the argument is.
I don't think his question was, is she the next big thing that white people like? And he said they are fetishizing her. He did not say me. He never said that.
Let me ask. So just real quick. So was Hallie fetishized? Was Oprah fetishized? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Hallie was the next cup of tea or whatever. So, you know what I mean? If the conversation should also go to, is it women? Is it black women? Is it black women that look a certain way? Is it because, so I think the same thing happens with different women, and it doesn't matter because she looks the way that she does.
Yeah.
This is a big weirdo topic.
But Lupita, the reason I think he's allowed to ask this question is because she does not fit the standard, the Western idea of beauty. Halle Berry does. Rihanna does.
That's
Beyonce does. So it is. That's a part of it. And he did allude to that when for the rest of the segment, he did say part of the reason that he's suspect is that primarily women who look like her in American society are not praised in this way. And for it to just
I don't know if he said that though.
I'm sorry?
Did he say that though?
He did. Did you see there's a longer segment that's 22 minutes, and then there's a shorter one where it's basically Gina going off for most of the time.
Oh, okay.
I watched the whole
there's
thing.
A longer segment where he talks about
I appreciate him being honest like that. And the truth of the matter is, I think he can say whatever the heck he wants because I completely believe in freedom of speech, and him as a reporter, he can do that. If he's a little bit telling on, I still wonder if he's telling a bit.
How was he telling on himself though when he was asking a question about how white America perceives her? He never said me. And the other thing too is in the segment, in the piece that he was being criticized for during that week, he had another segment where he talked about Lupita. And, we heard Gina, the one guest, Gina McCauley, she rattled off Lupita's accomplishments, which I'll go over those really quickly. But he already acknowledged all of that.
Yeah,
so he, I don't know. I felt like she was putting she was reading a lot more into this one little
One could say that.
I think the second woman, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, but I think she got to it.
That was Crystalline.
Thank you. Yeah, she got to a little bit better, but I think the telling on himself is the fact that he brought up the question, why. Yes, there's discourse that needs to happen, right?
Yeah.
That there is something to be examined here.
Right.
And so there is this idea of, well, why is he even thinking that? And it's interesting that you do feel the way, because I enjoyed that they said, between the perspective of a male perspective and a female perspective, because it's interesting that, you being the male, of course, and that you do feel that way.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's interesting that, I hadn't thought this before, how they said that it's a form of control. Like, we want our women to be this way, and you can't decide who's pretty, and I get to decide.
Yes.
And I very much had not thought about it that way before.
Yes.
And now I am.
Yes.
And it's not that I try to be this Pollyanna, but I do very much try to just really live my life and speak a truth of I'm just going to say it, that we are all people. I really
Right.
do. I don't want to be so naive about it.
Right.
But until we start thinking like that, I just feel like there's always going to be this stuff. And yes, acknowledge who we are. And I think about Jewish people a lot. Because I'm around a lot of Jewish people, but they have such a pride in who they are, but I'm still working on that. But so maybe I won't bring up that analogy, but there's something that they do that we don't, that we can do. I was at a play that was about Jewish people, and this woman came up to me and she said, "This is going to be great because we were both slaves." And I was like, huh. And at first I wasn't sure if I was upset or if she was being a weirdo person. And then the more I thought about it, it's been a couple of months, and I was like, wow, what a freeing and inclusive thing to say. She's like, yes, we were both slaves. Okay, let's move on to what we're here to learn about and see in this theater piece. And so in a roundabout way, I'm just saying that, yes, okay, we have this going on, but why can't we just accept that this is a beautiful woman that is being on every cover of every magazine because she should be, because she won an Oscar? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I guess.
But I just don't want them putting her on the cover because it's one thing. This is what I'll equate it to. It's great to be a beautiful actress, but that's a very tough, fence to straddle, because you don't just want to be considered beautiful. You want to be a great actress too.
No, of course, but even when it's almost like by winning the Oscar, you are a great actress. So we don't have to talk about that to some extent. Now, let's think about this. If she hadn't been on any magazines,
we would have been upset.
We would have been like, "Where's Lupita? She's not on anything." Yeah. So
no, you definitely that's part of the discussion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just read some of her accomplishments. She studied. She has a film and theater studies degree from Hampshire College. She was a production assistant on several Hollywood films. She starred in an MTV Kenya television series called Sugar, and the center of it was HIV transmission. She wrote, produced, and directed the documentary called In My Genes. She has a master's degree in acting from the Yale School of Drama. Of course, she now has an Academy Award. She was also born in Mexico. She has dual citizenship, Kenya and Mexico. It's a Luo tradition. That's her ethnically, she's Luo. It's a tradition to name a child after the events of the day. So her parents gave her a Spanish name. That's how her name is Lupita. It's a form of Guadalupe. When she was 16, her parents sent her back to Mexico for 7 months to learn Spanish. She's fluent in Luo, English, Swahili, and Spanish. And she said her views about herself changed when she saw South Sudanese supermodel Alec Weck become successful.
Yeah, I was thinking.
So and again, just lending a little more weight to my argument, I think it's a travesty that I did not know these things about her before I saw her on every magazine.
Right.
Man. That's the only thing that bothers me.
I hear you, but so many superstars, we don't hear about all their accomplishments. No one cares. People want sexy and beautiful. That's what they publicize. They don't care about how
Julia
smart.
Roberts went to school? I don't.
I'm not saying I agree. I wish it was different.
I know, like Angela Bassett. Like I know she went to an Ivy League school. Like I did know that about some of these other actresses. For her, I didn't. But
it took you some time before you got to know all that stuff, and we know that stuff. Yeah, it just takes some time.
Yeah. So this was a great discussion. Thank you for hanging out with us. We're gonna close out right here. We're gonna say goodbye until next week, and then we'll be right back. Tina's gonna close us out.
Okay.
In closing, just in between this break, there was a whole bunch of conversation about Lupita where people were really honest about their feelings regarding her and her beauty, but no one wants to talk about that on camera because they're afraid of being judged by society and the world. And so what I want to say is, I guess apropos for the time of year, it is spring season, it's the vernal equinox this weekend and next week when you're watching this. Spring equinox, and it's a time of clearing out. It's a time of new energy, fresh energy, new thoughts, getting rid of things that are no good for you in your life. It's that birth of fresh air of new life in the world. That's what spring is. And we need to take advantage of the rhythms of life. And so what I will ask is if there are any thoughts that don't feed you anymore, any clothes that don't feed you, any jobs, any people, any things that don't feed you in your life, you let go of them. And things that you judge yourself on and you worry about other people judging you and you can't say or do certain things, maybe in this new year, maybe you can try some things and look at it a little bit differently, and we can all be free to share honestly. Because once we start being honest, then we can really unite on some kind of level. I know that's so utopic, but that's what I think. I think we should be honest with our real opinions. Okay, that's it. Take care. Have a good week.